So today I kind of wanted to talk about something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's the Riff Graveyard. If you're a musician of any sort, you know what the Riff Graveyard is. It's basically where you write a riff, you like it, but you kind of don't like it. You set it aside for another day. Who knows if that day will come where you're going to use it. I was kind of scrolling Instagram and realizing that a lot of creators and musicians do this, where they create content around a riff and then you never see that riff again. Most of the time you don't ever see them use this in a song. It's kind of depressing actually, because doesn't it get very exhausting writing a riff every day or every week and never using it? For me, I have a riff graveyard as well, but I guess unfinished projects, I would call it. I do plan on using these, and I kind of want to get rid of the riff graveyard. I want to start using every riff that I write and never put it in the graveyard. This year, everything that I write, I'm going to make sure it makes it into a song. This is a very big project, a big idea. So what better way to start this idea than on YouTube? So I found an old song on my hard drive the other day. It was for a song that was going to be on Heart from the Artificials a couple years ago. And it was kind of like a B-side riff sort of song thing. It wasn't really hashed out that well. It was just an idea. And we're going to take that and use it to write a new song, basically. So that's what we're going to do. Build on it or change it and just morph it into an actual song, record it start to finish. It's going to have vocals on it, production, everything. I'm not putting a time limit on these songs to be released, but I am planning on releasing them. We did this one year where we took a year. We tried to write a single every month, and about like the third or fourth month, it became very hard to release a single every month. And then it became every other month, and then every other month. And then we kind of just lost track, and we ended up releasing, I think, 8 or 9 singles that year. And the goal was to do 12. I'm not putting any sort of goal or anything. The main objective is to take riffs that I write and don't put them in the graveyard and use them. So along the way, when I'm writing these riffs, if I don't like what I hear, I'm just going to keep working on it until I do. Okay, so let's go in here into this old hard drive. And this is basically all of the pre-pro tracks for Heart from the Artificials back in the day. And I was just scrolling through listening to some of the terrible mixes. And I found this song right here. Full-length song number 2. All right, I think I have to put my headphones on for this. All right, let's have a listen. All right, that's pretty much it. There were some cool parts in there. There was a lot of sloppiness. As you know, this is a pre-production. This is just scratch tracks that I had. I didn't line anything up or edit anything. But there were bits and pieces that I liked about that. The goal is to use as much of that as possible. There were a few things in that I really didn't like, so we may just throw them away altogether. They're not going to go in a riff graveyard. They're going to be thrown away completely, but there are some cool riffs in there that we're going to still use. So the riff I wrote the other day, I posted on Instagram. That was basically a product of me hearing that track and then thinking of some ideas. Here's the riff from Instagram if you guys want to hear it. Cool. I think that riff was pretty cool. It was definitely inspired by that first track that you guys heard. So we're going to take those two, we're going to morph them together somehow. They're in the same key. So I'm going to go into a session and I'm going to program everything. It's going to be program drums, program bass, and program guitar. If you're not familiar, I have a guitar plugin called Axure GMP. Stands for Guitar Midi Processor. So it's basically just a DI of my carving back there on the wall. I sampled it, so I made a plugin out of it. If you want to go check that out, go to studysoundaudio.com and learn more about it. But we're going to be using that for writing this song. So I'm probably going to supplement some of the riffs in the song with Axure. And if Axure sounds cool, we'll just keep it in, or we can blend some stems in with it. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. For the most part, we're going to be using Axure. We're going to be using Submission Audio, Giga Drums, and then we'll have Sarah come in here later. Sarah, my wife, by the way, and do vocals. But we're not at that part yet, but we will get to that. So yeah, let's just jump in and start a session and figure out what we can do. I remember how I played it, but I might change it up a little bit. I don't know. Okay, so it started off kind of like... something like that. I don't want to get too technical with it because I'm going to change the pattern of it. So I'm going to do something like... The chords I use in that new riff that I did the other day, the Instagram riff, are going to be similar to that, what I just did. So we're going to take a variation of that. And then there was something going on in the beginning. We'll listen again. See, I don't know what that was. I'm going to try to do a variation of that, but add a bunch of delay to it. So it's going to be more like... And I may take like another delay guitar over the top of that and kind of do maybe some tapping. I'll figure something out for that. But that's the general idea of like the ambience part behind the guitar riff. So we'll start with that. Let's find out what tempo the song is at actually first. Probably 155. I might do a scratch track for it now, but I'm going to program it. You know, something that I realized I've gotten good at over the years is tremolo picking. All right, I got to listen to the actual tempo of the riff that we did the other day. Oh man, the tempo's a lot faster. We're going to have to redo that actually. Let's do 185. 185 sounds about right. Okay, let's try it again. That's a lot faster than I was expecting. Let me see what the riff sounds like behind it. That'll do for now. I know it's not perfect. So actually that riff flows quite nicely into the next one. All right, let's get a scratch track. May not end up exactly like this, but we'll just try it. There we go. That was it. Let's try to double that. It's still a little sloppy, but hey, this is just scratch takes. We're just trying to get an idea of where we want to go with this riff. You can already tell it's slightly different from the original. I don't really like any of that. To me, that can go to riff hell, because that's not going to go into any sort of graveyard. I do like the sort of idea behind it, you know, like an ambient sort of clean. So I added the little pitch shifted clean thing. That's the riff idea for the beginning of the song. Actually, the beginning of the song, I want to have more of like an intro sort of like build up with like clean guitars and stuff. I don't know if I'm going to do like the drum where it goes duh, duh, you know, like I'm not trying to do all that. Sometimes I work backwards a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just write the main riff, and then we'll move it over. We'll figure out something for the actual beginning of the track. I feel like this is like the beef of the riff. This is like the guts, and I want to start with that because that's the main like pull forward for the rest of the song. I'll explain that more in detail as we go through, but basically whatever riff I come up with, I use its core notes, the root notes and things like that, and I mess around with like where I could take it in the fretboard. Those chords, I'll use those notes somewhere on the fretboard, either an octave of it, like an octave or a harmony. Those are octaves. So if I do end up riffing some more, those are two notes I could probably go to in the song to write something else. A little cheat code for you guys. If you're trying to write something and you don't know what to write after that, I highly recommend just taking the original riff, figure out what chord or whatever it is you like, and find the octaves of it. Then move about the fretboard, what note you want to do next. It's really cool for leads. It's really good for riffs. It's really good basically for the entire song. That's my writing process in a nutshell. So cheat code unlocked. That definitely has potential to be an intro of some sort. So anyways, we'll move on. Okay, so from here, we're going to write a simple little drum track. I love writing drums, man. I feel like I should have been a drummer in a past life. Not to toot my own horn again, but I can write drums pretty well, guys. Starting with the both crashes. The main crash here. Ta-da. See, I'm following the rhythm of the guitar riff, basically. Something like this. All right, so I can write drums pretty fast. This already sounds cool, man. I'm already digging this. This already sounds like a good groovy, like driving riff. Yeah, we cooking, brothers. Might do like a ghost note right there. I like doing stuff like that. Just ghost noting it a little bit. Okay, that's better. It sounds more natural. And then we'll copy the pattern and change stuff up, because that's what I do. There we go. We got the first section programmed. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to program the guitars. I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. Basically, I want to reinforce the rhythms with Axure, and who knows, might even just use Axure if it sounds good. Give it a second to load. There's a new feature on Axure called 4 strings, which lets you get the exact tone and fret of whatever string you're doing. I'm going to program this exactly how I'm playing it on every string. If you haven't already, go check out Axure at studysoundaudio.com. We just released version 1.5 update. It's got 4 strings on it. It's got stereo guitars, a lot more samples. Try it out for yourself, see what you think. Basically, I made this plugin as a writing tool. I didn't make this plugin to replace guitar players or anything like that. It's just a tool to help you write. You know, you can try different tunings very quickly. You don't have to like worry about being in tune. You got a very clean DI to work with. It's basically like having Guitar Pro, but have it actually sound way better. Actually like a real guitar, so you can like demo out your songs and go, hey, this is sick, but I don't like this part. Okay, well, your bandmates are like, all right, well, this part sucks, let's change it. It's not that big a deal because you don't have to retrack it. You just change some notes, change the tuning, there you go. And then you can demo it out again. And once you guys have a solid foundation of a song, then you can start tracking it. That's a scenario you could use Axure with. And other scenarios where if you guys are supplementing your guitars with Axure and using them in final productions, or if you can get Axure to sound really sick, which I've heard a lot of people be able to get Axure to sound really sick, don't even track real guitars, just use Axure, and it's very possible. It does take some time to program Midi. If you're not familiar with Midi, it's a bit of a learning curve at first, but once you get your learning curve down, it's just like programming drums. You saw how I programmed drums very quickly there. If you don't already know how to program Midi, just stick around on this channel. We're going to be talking about a lot of Midi programming and things like that, and production and writing riffs. So if that's your thing, subscribe. So this first riff, I've got my keys labeled here to show you what exactly we're doing. This DI is going to sound different than this guitar because this is not the guitar I used to track Axure with. The guitar back there is the guitar I used. I need to get into the plugin actually first and make sure I select guitar 1. All right, so first note is going to be, oh, that's the note. There we go, we nailed it. First try. So da-da. Okay, so that's the second note, and that's the third note. That's the chord. Okay, so now you can do this with the main samples. You're going to be able to program them at the same exact time on the grid. I don't recommend that because it does not sound natural when you're programming MIDI, especially with guitar. So what you're going to want to do, we're going to zoom in here a bit, and I'm going to change my grid length to 128, which is 1/28th of a note. When you're playing chords, you want the first note to ring out. Just like, you know, when you're playing a guitar, you're not going to strum every string at the same time. It's just physically impossible. So if you were to slow it down, you hit every string one after the other. So that's how we're going to program it. We're going to be at least a 64th note apart from each other because that's how 4 strings work. This is the first chord right here, right? And we'll delete that one because we're going to copy paste these. So you got your chord. Now we need to plug in the string articulation. So this is the 6th string. That first note is on the 6th string. And then that's the next string down, 64th note apart. That should be correct. With Axure, this is how it works. So you plug in your notes first, and then you do whatever string you want. And this is for 4 strings. If you're using the main sample articulations, then you're going to get whatever you program, and then you plug in your key switch. Say you want it to be downstroke, sustained downstroke. You just plug in a key switch there, and all your notes will be sustained downstroke until you change the key switch. These other key switches down here, these, well, they work similar, but they're for your strings. But we're not going to use the main sample articulation for the 4 strings. The 4 strings have their own dedicated articulations up top. But first, I go ahead and lay out the strings. So we have these 4 strings and these 4 notes. That's the chord. Now we need to plug in the sustained key switch for 4th string, which is up here. It's MIDI note F#5. MIDI note 90. You just plug it in there, and it doesn't matter how long the note is. You just have to make sure you put a note there. So there you go. That's basically that first chord. If we want that chord to happen again, we can't just program it like that. We can't. Whenever these notes play, they're going to go off of this string here because it doesn't change the key switch yet. It's going to go, oh, it wants all these strings to play on this last string whenever it gets to this part. No. So you're going to copy paste all of those strings again, just like that. The only thing you don't have to copy over is the articulation. All these are alt pick key switches. Sustain alt pick, palm mute alt pick, tap alt. Well, you can't really alt pick a tap, but it's tapping and then pinch. That's how you do 4th string. You just make sure you copy your string choices over to the next part so that it doesn't strum all your strings on that last note that you programmed, because you want to make sure it strums those strings again. In this case, if I want to program it super realistic, I have to program it like I would an upstroke. So we're going to actually go opposite. Where that first string starts right here, we're going to go here, and we're going to go there, and we're going to go there, and then we're going to go there. We just reverse these strings. So da -da -da -da. So these extend out. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to copy and paste it. Okay, so we have 2 dead notes. So we're going to do a dead note there and a dead note here. So I'm going. So it's the same exact note. It's just programmed slightly different. That last note goes down 1. Yeah, there we go. So you don't necessarily have to write with Axure with a guitar. I just do that because I play guitar and I just like to hear what it sounds like programmed. But if you can't play guitar, you know, this is how you would do it. So these next hits are going to be downstrokes. And then double it because I'm strumming twice. I'm going to add 2 more strings in there at the last note since I do that ring out. We're going to program those in. Ooh, that's sounding good. And you know, you can always test out what the neck pickup would sound like too. But we're going to go with the bridge pickup, of course. Okay, so the thing about Midi is if you don't understand how Midi works is when we're making samples for this, you can't cut off the beginning of the note because it has pick attack. The pick attack is already built into the sample, so we can't just cut it because then you're going to get a very unrealistic sound. How that works is we keep the pick attack in there just ever so slightly, but whenever you program your Midi, it's going to be slightly off from the grid. So you can tell when you're hearing it play back, the Midi sounds like it's not matching up with the drums, and that's because the pick attack is still there in the sample, so you have to move them or offset them. And an easy way to do this is you can offset within Reaper or your DAW. You should have like a offset, media offset playback. You click this button here, -0.024. Okay, let's hear what that sounds like. That's not good enough. We need to do a little bit more than that. Let's do 0.4. Almost there. It's pretty close. There's another way you can do this. If you can't get it dialed in just right, I recommend doing this. Just take the Midi and copy it all, and you move it over a 1/28th note, and that's going to be exactly on time. Okay, it sounds about the same as 0.7, I think it was. That's about where you want to be, 0.7, 0.8. It sounds on point now. Now let's hear what it sounds like with tone on it. All right, so another thing I like to do to get the Midi to sound a little more realistic is you're not going to have every note cut out at the same time, right? Right before these dead notes, right? So you're going to want to extend a little bit past it, you know, like that. This part actually repeats, so we're going to copy that. But see, remember, we're offsetting the Midi. We got to make sure it's moved over 1/128th note so it stays on time with the rest of the riff. All right, that last note, it changes notes. So that note is going to be, just so we can hear an audition, we're going to hit the downstroke. And another reason why this doesn't sound that great yet is because I haven't edited it to bleed into each other. So these notes right here need to come over to bleed into the next note. Because when you have silence in between those notes, you're going to get that unnatural sort of sound. I go ahead and just attach all these to each other. If it's a chord, now they sound like they bleed into each other, which is what you want with a 4-string chord. It's a little time consuming, yes, I do get that. But if you're like me and you don't mind programming things, I mean, people program drums and pianos and all kinds of stuff all day. So what makes a difference if it's guitar too? To me, I feel like it's the same thing almost. Up to you how much time you really want to spend on programming. I don't mind it. I actually enjoy it. This is fun to me. It's very therapeutic. And it's also fun if you mess around with the colors and just get creative with it. I don't know why, but my guitars are purple, which that's cool because that's one of my favorite colors. All right, now here it changes chord, right? So what we want to do is we want to cut out the note a little bit before because we're doing a slide here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a left-handed slide note and we're going to plug one in right there. You probably won't be able to tell right off the bat. Okay, so I have to go through and adjust those to be downstroke, upstroke, and also make them bleed into each other. So that'll take a second. Let me do that real fast. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's listen to it with tone on it. Okay, cool. Okay, so the right guitar is Axure, left guitar is real guitar. Cool. You can barely tell a difference, man. That is so cool. So that's going to be it for today on today's video, working on the riff. We are going to pick back up on Wednesday. I'm going to be streaming myself on Twitch and YouTube, continuing this riff writing process, and we're going to tackle this and build it, add more to it. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, share, do all that YouTube stuff. Thank you guys for watching. Okay, so my camera died at the very end of that. See you on the next one.